Hammer's loaded up for me. Double click this. Okay, so we're going to go up to File, New, and straight away we're going to go File, Save As, bhop_template. So before we make a bunny hop map, we're actually going to make a template map. And this map is going to have all the essential entities we need to create a bunny hop map. This is for the simple reason that you won't have to remake these entities every time you start a new map. You will just start off with the bhop template map. You will save it as the name of your new map and get started from there. And already you have everything set up. You've got your teleports, your spawns, your lighting. It makes the process a lot easier. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We've got 4 camera views. We've got our 3D view, top, left, right, or front. Our standard ortho. Your main toolbar is over here, and this is what we'll be using most of the time. So let's start making some geometry. The first thing we usually start with is the floor. So we'll have to select our block tool, Shift B, come over to the top view over here, and click and drag. Maybe a 512 by 512 area. You can see that's showing up in all quadrants, and hit enter. Now I'm going to hit Z on my keyboard while in the 3D view to start flying around just with WASD. This is your main form of navigation in Hammer. Now your block might look a little bit different to mine because I've got some funny textures, but let's change this block to the textures we just downloaded. So another very common tool is your texture application tool, which is right below your block tool. So we're going to click on that. We're going to go to Browse, and we are going to type in bhop_dev, which was the name of the folder we've installed. I'm just going to go with dev2, dev02_n5, hit apply. That's applied our texture to our block, and now it's a lot easier to see. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a spawn. Spawns are generally good. Well, you need one in the map first of all, but they're also a great way to test scale. So we're going to go to the entity tool here, Shift E, click on it. Now just click anywhere on your block, and the default entity is a T-spawn. So he's right there. You can see the approximate size of our block here. By default, he doesn't snap to the grid. I know it looks like he's snapped, but he's not. So I'm just going to click and hold, and get him to snap in the middle of the block here. Now it's best practice that whenever you have an entity in the map, a spawn entity, he's lifted a little bit off the ground so he doesn't get stuck in the ground when the map loads. Now the problem is, at the moment, if you lift him off the ground, he's either going to snap to the ground or he's going to be way above it. So this is because we've got our grid size too large. So to change your grid size, you're just going to use the square brackets on your keyboard, and each click divides the grid by 2. So if I click it twice, as I have, now I can drag him to a comfortable spot, and I just click the other bracket to bring that back up. So now that we've got our T in the map, we're going to need some walls. So I'm going to hold down Shift, click and drag this block out, and now I've duplicated it. The top view, I can grab these handles, I suppose, and drag down and drag it up. Okay, hold down Shift, copy it over, hold down Shift, copy it over, scale it, and we're starting to get our 4 walls. Now this is going to be a bunny hop map, so it's no point just having a square. So we're also going to have to drag out this block here to reasonable length, maybe a little bit more. No, we'll just keep it there for now, and click on both these walls. To select them both at the same time, we have to click one, hold down Control on our keyboards, click the other one, and scale them outwards. And now we can scale them at the same time because they are the same length. And we'll add another wall at the end. That's enough for now. Now we can start adding a bit of a bunny hop map. Now before we go any further, I quickly have to explain something important. The way the source engine works is when you make a map, the map has to be completely enclosed. That means that you can't be exposed to this black void in any way. Your map has to be totally encased, which is fine. That's what we're doing here, and eventually we're going to add a roof to this to fully close off our map. So before we do that, let's add a start area, an end area, and a small bunny hop map. So again, I'm just going to hold down Shift, drag this block up. On my top view, I'm going to drag it in to maybe about 320, and that is going to be our start area. So obviously our T spawn is in the middle of it. That's no good. We're going to drag him up, reduce our grid size with the square brackets, bring him down a bit, and just in the top view, drag him to a more appropriate location. Okay, so at this point, we have to make a slight modification to this block. So you've got a bit of theory coming your way, so hold on for a second. Now, what we've been making so far, these brushes here, they're known as BSB brushes, and the engine uses them to calculate how the map will be rendered. Now, each of these brushes requires computational time when the map is compiling to calculate that. And if you have too many of them, it can actually impact the performance of your map and make it run really badly. So to avoid that, we tell certain blocks not to contribute to this compile time. And we use something called a func_detail to do that. It's pretty simple to set up. You just select a block and then hit Control T. This object properties is going to come up and say func_detail, which is the default entity for a brush. Just hit apply. And you'll notice in your editor, while subtle, it's actually changed color to green. That's fine. So now it performs exactly the same as any other brush, except it will not add to the compile time. It's very efficient. So any block that is not exposed to the void will be a func detail. Okay, so now that that's a func detail, let's create the end zone of our little bunny hop map, holding down Shift and dragging. And because we've copied that, if we double click here, it is also a func detail. So we're being very efficient with our construction process. All right, now let's start the bhop blocks, which will also be func details. So Shift, scale this to a more appropriate block size, let's say 128 by 128, and hold down Shift and drag. Actually, because this is a small map, let's make them 64 by 64. Shift and drag, Shift and drag, Shift and drag. Not a very difficult map. That's fine for now. It's just the test map. So you'll notice that with the current textures we have, pardon me, it's going to be quite difficult to see which is the ground and which are the bhop blocks you're supposed to land on. So we're going to fix that right now by applying some textures. So again, we're going to open up our texture application tool, going to go to browse, and let's go to a dev03n2 for the ground. So we make the ground white. And let's actually select all these blocks, holding down Control and clicking them all. Open up your texture application tool, browse to dev03n2, apply. Everything's white. Now browse again, go to dev03n8, and sorry, I should have mentioned, we right click to apply the texture to a specific face. Now what we've done is we've just added high contrast between the blocks and the ground. I recommend you do this for every single map. It doesn't matter what textures you use, just have a high contrast between where the player is supposed to land and where the player is not supposed to land. Many great bunny hop maps are ruined because they do not follow this simple procedure. You could have white on black, you could have blue on orange, it doesn't matter. Maintain the high contrast. Okay guys, believe it or not, we're actually almost finished with our map. All we have to do now is add the roof. So clicking the floor, which is a brush. You can tell it's a brush because when we double click it, nothing comes up. It's not a func detail, which it tells us here. We need the brush, hold down shift, drag it up. Now we have a roof. Our entire map is enclosed. This means it will compile. So all we're going to do now to compile is hit F9 on our keyboards. This window will come up. Run BSB, run viz, run rad. There's that BSB again, which I was talking about before. That influences the vids, and rad, I can't remember rad, I think it's lighting. Anyway, additional game parameters, insecure, don't worry about that. Just hit OK. And your game should launch, and we will test it now. Okay guys, we've just loaded our Bhop template map, so we'll hit continue, choose terrorists. And isn't this great? We've actually started a Bhop map. Only problem at the moment is we can't actually Bhop. So that's what we're going to fix in an upcoming part of the tutorial. The other thing to note is it kind of looks terrible because there's no lighting in the map currently. But hey, at least we know it's compiled. If your map didn't compile at this part of the tutorial, it's because you have a gap in your map. These walls are perfectly aligned in the editor because we've used the correct grid size. If your map is not compiling, check that everything is correctly enclosed. Okay, I'll see you in the next part.